So yes and is basically, it's another phrase for accept and build. So if we're on stage performing together, doing improv together, and you say, hey, we're on the moon, I'm going to accept that reality. And then I'm going to build upon it and say, yes, and we've got this flag that we need to stick in the ground and claim our space, whatever. And then you will and it and like add to it. On the other hand, you might see people go, no, we're not on the moon. We're at the office. You're just dreaming. And so you can still make it work, but it flows a lot better if you say yes and on stage. That works very well too in meetings and when you're brainstorming. So yes and is such a game-changing tool.
Hey friends, welcome to Public Health Careers. I'm Amari Richards, founder of the Public Health Millennial and host of Public Health Careers. Join us as we dive deep into public health topics and career journeys. You'll hear diverse career stories, absorb professional development and career strategies to help you learn, navigate, and transform your public health journey. On today's episode, we have Dayna Gowan. Dayna is a speaker, improviser, and facilitator of fun at Improvisely Speaking. She also has a background and love for employee wellness, and she currently works as a health and wellness manager at Keenan, a Californian insurance broker. Public speaking and improvisation skills have changed her life, making her a more confident speaker, colleague, and friend. She conferred a Bachelor's of Exercise Science at the University of South Carolina and continued on to get a Master's of Public Health with a focus on physical activity and public health at the University of South Carolina. In today's episode, you'll hear and learn more about how Dayna conquered her fear of public speaking and the importance of public speaking, how improvisation skills can help you in your career and personal life, using the improvisation skill of saying yes and to your public health career goals and dreams, the importance of giving yourself grace as a working parent, and much, much more. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and share this episode with someone who gets some value from it, and join our free community below. Enjoy today's episode.
Hey, this is Dayna Gowan. I'm a speaker, improviser, and facilitator of fun, and you are listening to Public Health Careers.
Dayna, I'm so excited to listen more about the improv and the intersection of your work. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Amari, for having me. I'm so excited to be on. I am also a millennial, and I guess a public health millennial. So I love that you do this. I love that you have this show, this business, and I'm just so grateful to be on. Thank you.
And I am grateful as well. Just to share with the audience, Dayna, just walk me through a quick 1 minute like breath work exercise, which I haven't done before a podcast, but it might be something I do incorporate in. But it was very, very grounding, and I appreciate that. And Dayna is also a fellow podcaster, so I'm learning some tips and tricks as well.
Same. I love being on the other side of things. It's always nice to be the guest for once. Interviewing is a lot of work, and I love it. I love hearing people's stories and stuff, but I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of nice to be on the other seat.
I know that feeling completely, but I'm glad that I'm able to hear your interview. I think the interview is the easy part, is all the things before and after that are hard, but I really enjoy sitting down and talking to people and hearing about their journeys. And to that point, how do you identify, and tell us a little about your personal background?
Yeah, I'm she, her, and I actually have a new identity as of 2024. I am a mom now. I had my baby girl in July 2024. And she, at the time of this recording, she will be 6 months next week. And I can't believe it. And they say time is a thief, and they are absolutely right. Time has gone by both slow and fast. The days go by fast, the nights go by long a lot of times. And I just can't believe, one, that she's here, she's doing well, she's healthy. I'm so grateful for that. And I'm grateful to be a mom, of course. So yeah, that's a new identity to add to the list of speaker, improviser, facilitator fun, and new mom. Yay.
Love that. Congratulations, and wishing you both great health going into this year as well.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and so you asked a little bit about personal background, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so I grew up in New Orleans, and I was a senior in high school when Hurricane Katrina hit, so that tells you it hit in 2005, tells you a little how old I am. But I mention that only because it gives you insight into, like, my journey as to why I went so far away for college. For me, it was far. I went to University of South Carolina for undergrad and grad school, and I'm an only child, and my parents were like, "Why do you wanna leave us? It's 10 hours away. Why do you wanna go so far for college?" I got accepted to LSU, like, almost went there. It would have been the easier choice. It would have been an hour away, a lot easier, and there's just something calling to me. It's like, I have to get out. I have to explore. I have to be more independent on my own. I've gotta do this, and if I don't do it, I will always wonder why not, and if I could. And, so I fought for it, and things worked out. I went to University of South Carolina. I did not know anyone in South Carolina. I had never visited South Carolina before the orientation. It was just kind of on a whim of, like, I wanna go there. I feel it, like, it feels right, it feels good, and I went and checked it out, got accepted, and luckily, their exercise science program was really good too, one of the top programs, so it felt right. So for undergrad, I studied exercise science. I wanted to be a personal trainer. I think we'll get into this more, but I wanted to be a personal trainer, and then, you know, things kinda changed after I tried that, and so that's when I did my master's of public health also in South Carolina. Currently, I am living in Los Angeles. My husband got a job out here about 6 years ago or so, and, I've been able to get a job out here in the employee wellness space, and I really love California. I don't think we'll be able to stay just in having a family and stuff. We're looking at possibly moving, but I have loved my time in California.
I can only imagine. And thank you for giving us that overview. Definitely excited to dive into all those different intersections throughout your career. But also wanted to ask, being a new mom, how has having a baby and being a mom shaped or reshaped your perspective of wellness, self-care, and work?
It is the hardest thing I've done, and I'm not even being dramatic. Like, it's so hard and so rewarding at the same time. I've had to really question my identity and who I am and what I am and what I'm doing right now. For the first 2 months, I was so foggy, my brain was so foggy, I just couldn't even string together sentences. I couldn't even, like, think clearly because I was so sleep deprived and stuff. And I do feel clearer now, but, I've had to just step back and give myself more grace. As a parent, as a working parent, I excuse me, I start back at work actually next week. At the time of this recording, I'll start next week. So I've been feeling a little bit, I told you this in the email beforehand, that I feel out of the loop in the wellness space, employee wellness space. I haven't been on LinkedIn. I haven't been reading up any research of, like, what's the new trends and what works and what doesn't. And that's okay. There's a part of me that freaks out a little bit and goes, "Oh, I need to catch up. I need to be more. I need to do more. I need to be more productive." And then there's the piece of me that goes, "I can't right now. Like, I'm doing the best I can as a mom, as a working mom. I'm showing up for my daughter, and I am making mistakes, and that is okay because I'm human." And so bringing that perspective now instead of that, like, we need to do more and do all the things, which I kind of was before having a child. I'm not gonna lie, I was very much an overachiever, and before I did improv, very much a perfectionist. And so just taking that grace now as a mom and bringing that into my work, hopefully next week, and as I get back into work mode, I'm realizing, like, the things that we do in employee wellness, like, we ask people to do this whole checklist of things, to get a premium discount, or do this walking program, or do this whole program that like you have to check off so many things and do all this stuff. And it's like, that's too much. Like for me, as someone who loves wellness and loves being active and healthy, even I'm like, I'm not doing all that stuff. Like I can't. And so, excuse me. And so I want to bring that perspective back into my work of, hey, let's take it easy. Let's do one thing at a time. Let's focus on one aspect of wellness and let it be an aspect that people are excited about and want to do, whether they're parents or not. They could be caregivers of pets, of loved ones. Everyone has their own thing going on, and we're so busy. Let's not do all the things in employee wellness. Let's actually do less is more and actually have people enjoy wellness and get something out of it.
Love that. And I would love to firstly say, sending you positive vibes as you enter back into the workforce next week. And
Thank you.
you're most welcome. You're most welcome, and let us know how we can support you. But I think it's really, like the big life events can really shift how we think and show up and see what is important and see how the things maybe we were doing before just maybe aren't as important to the vision and what we are like focusing on at this season in life. And I think that's okay. And realizing on the employee wellness side of things is like, how do we support employees without, I don't know, being so prescriptive or having them do a manuscript of things that is I don't know, helpful, but also in the sense maybe anxiety inducing to a
Yes.
degree.
Yeah, and for my world now as a breastfeeding mom, even going into the office, which I do have the luxury right now, I think I can go into the office 1 to 2 times a week and work from home 2 to 3 times a week. And just going into the office, I have to bring all of my pumping equipment. I need a room to pump in. Like, there's so much extra stuff in my brain now that I need for at least 6 months while I'm pumping and working. And that's hard, right? And so I just I have a lot more respect for working moms, working parents in general, and just honestly everyone. I have a bigger respect for everyone, and just yeah, letting people kind of find what works for them and letting it be more open to exploring for employee wellness instead of so prescriptive.
Yeah, and I also appreciate you raising up the fact like everyone has something, like even if you mightn't see it, other people have things that are important to them that take up time and are valuable, and we have to respect that as well.
Absolutely.
So glossophobia, the fear of public speaking. I would love for you to tell me more about your story. I know it starts off from crying for the manager to your manager, who is a distinguished Toastmaster, to now being the facilitator of fun at Improvly Speaking. So tell us more about that journey.
Yeah, I mean, all my life I hated public speaking. Like in high school, we didn't have to do a ton of presentations. I feel like that's probably changed now. They probably force the students to do more presentations, but whenever I did have to speak in front of people, I would always get nervous. I hated even introducing myself in new classes, like in college. You go around the room and you'd have to be like, "Hi, I'm Dayna, and I'm taking this class because I have to. It's a required class." Like, I could feel my heart pounding and pounding, like just watching it, like it's almost my turn. Oh my God, oh my God. And then I literally just had to say my name. And I would get so worried about that. I wouldn't raise my hand in class to ask questions, even if I had them. Like, I just hated the spotlight on me, which is so funny, right? Because, like, flash forward 15 plus years, like, I have a podcast now and like a business on public speaking. But I just, I would get so nervous. I would get red faced. I would get shaky. I would like my hands would shake, my legs would shake. You probably couldn't tell, but I could tell my legs were shaking. My voice would shake. It was like I blacked out for however long I had to talk. Like I would have no control or idea about what I was saying. And I would sit down from the presentation or whatever, and I would be like, what the heck did I just say? I have no idea. And I would just be so worried about what people were thinking about me. Like, am I making enough eye contact? Am I doing this? And I was never comfortable with it. And so this fear followed me from high school to college to undergrad. I had to take one elective on public speaking, required elective of public speaking, and I dreaded it, but I got through it and I never took another public speaking elective again. Side note, um, our first speech for that class was a 4-minute speech on something that influenced you. And I spoke for 11 minutes on my experience with Hurricane Katrina, which, to be fair, like needs more than 4 minutes. And also, like, I also just rambled. So I had a very nice teacher. I got a B minus. He might have felt a little sorry for either me as the speaker or the content that I spoke about. But that just shows you maybe what you're up with for this podcast, that I am a talker, but I have learned to be more controlled. Anyway, it's the fear followed me undergrad, grad school. I remember doing my practicum presentation for grad school. I didn't do a thesis. I did a community project that required a 1-hour presentation at the end. And of course, I dreaded that, right? Like, 1 hour? How am I going to speak for an hour? And I did it. I did the presentation. I was ready to go. And as soon as I started, I forgot how I wanted to start. Like, I was trying to do this like cutesy little thing, and I literally blanked out for what felt like eternity. It was probably a few seconds. But in my mind, like, I'm like, oh, this is already ruined. Like, they're already judging me that I wasn't prepared enough, blah, blah, blah. I always thought that the public speaking fear was just me in front of my peers. That, like, oh, I'm just nervous in front of my peers. They're not paying attention. No one really cares at school, right? We're all doing our own thing. We're trying to just get our degrees and go. Like, it's just my peers. When I get my job in the corporate space, I'll be fine. Like, I'll figure out this public speaking thing. And that didn't happen. So flash forward about probably a year into my career, and it was 3 months into this new job that I got at BlueCross, BlueShield of South Carolina. And I had to present to a group of HR people about stress management, of all things. And it was a 20-minute presentation, and I just did everything wrong in that presentation. I didn't introduce myself, and for what I consider to be everything wrong, quote unquote, everything wrong, right? I didn't introduce myself. I went way over time too. And that's kind of a common theme, I think, even in this short time that we've talked, that I go way over time. And I called out how nervous I was. I said how public speaking stressed me out for a stress management presentation. The manager of that HR group was a distinguished Toastmaster. And my manager had told me that ahead of time. He was like, oh, good luck. So-and-so is a distinguished Toastmaster, just so you know. And I was like, I have no idea what that means. That sounds really fancy. I have no idea what that means. Now I'm extra nervous. I was already nervous. Now I'm extra nervous. So I stumble through that presentation. I get back to my office and I run to the bathroom and I cry. Because at that point, this fear of public speaking has now followed me into my career. My theory that, like, oh, it was just my peers, it did not pan out. This has become an issue, and it's going to be an issue if I don't fix it. And that is when I said, this is the last straw moment. This is it. I cannot proceed with this fear anymore. I have to do something about this. It's not going to fix itself. I have to do something about it. And I remember so-and-so was a distinguished Toastmaster. What is this Toastmasters thing? I looked it up. My company had a corporate club that met every Thursday. A week or two later, I go on Thursday, I check it out. I end up joining a month later. And I've been in Toastmasters now for 10 years. I think October 2014 I joined, and Toastmasters has really helped me. It's kind of like exposure therapy, like, they force you to get up and speak, do these 5 to 7-minute speeches in a very low stakes environment, so that way when you are giving a speech in a higher stakes environment, you have the skills then that you've learned in Toastmasters. And now I stay in Toastmasters because I enjoy meeting people. I like hearing people's stories. The stories that people share in Toastmasters is unreal. Like, just the comfort level is there. People feel comfortable to share and be themselves and share some really intense stories. And so it's really amazing. You get to meet people and see them where they are a lot of times. And yeah, I mean, I've conquered my fear. I am a public speaking coach. Like, I help others to conquer their fear of public speaking now. I don't need to stay in Toastmasters, but I enjoy it, so I stay in it. And all that to say, I mean, honestly, I mean, we'll talk about it, but conquering that fear really changed my career, and it changed my life too.
I appreciate you sharing that and looking forward to diving deeper into more of that. Given that you would have extensive experience in public speaking, what kind of advice would you give to someone that would want to improve their communication skills?
Practice. If you find that, or if you are feeling like it is an issue and you're not performing or communicating or speaking as well as you want, and it is holding you back, find an outlet to practice. It can be Toastmasters. I will say, just my qualm with Toastmasters is that it does require a commitment level, which for me as a working parent, as a mom now, like, I don't have that level of commitment anymore. But, if you have the commitment, great. Find whatever works for you. Find a coach, find another company that offers training, talk to your company and see what kind of training they do. And the issue isn't going to fix itself. So if you're finding that it's an issue, work on it. And then I will say there are some people who are like, well, I don't get nervous, so to speak, in public speaking, but I don't like to do it. And I think that's also something to explore and say, well, why don't I like to do it? And what's holding you back there? Because when you start to like public speaking, it doesn't mean that you go on so many podcasts because you just love talking. But if you get asked to give a presentation or to do a sales presentation, or you get asked something out of the blue, you're not like, oh no, I don't want to. You're like, oh, cool, something different. Like, you're more apt to take the challenge if you like public speaking rather than letting your fear hold you back.
Absolutely, and I think it's so fundamental to ask that why question to ourselves, and I think we oftentimes overlook, like to your point of saying, "Oh, I don't need to know public speaking," or but there are all these small instances when we're talking to our team, when we're talking to our manager, when we're talking to people that work under us, where like public speaking is happening all these times when you have to present work. So I think the earlier that you're able to get at least a little bit comfortable with it, the more that you are going to benefit from it.
Yep. I can relate so much. I've worked with people in the past who just don't love it. And they will oftentimes ask me first, do you want to take this sales presentation or do you want to do this? And I'm just like, you do it. Like, you go for it, kind of thing. I want to empower them to do it too. And yeah, it can really hold you back if you don't like to do it. Because as you said, public speaking is everywhere, communication is everywhere. And if you dread it, then you're going to have anxious days all the time, which I can relate to, right? Because in my new role, or in my current role as a health and wellness manager for Keenan, which is an insurance broker, I have to facilitate a lot of meetings. I make an agenda and I lead the meetings and ask, do you want to do this program? And when do you want to start? And let's do this program. And what are your goals with your employee wellness program? And when I first started that job, I had my Toastmasters training for about 4 years, I think, at that point, and I would still get nervous leading those calls because there was a lot of silence. You know, employee wellness is big for me, but when I get on these calls with HR people and benefits managers and people, for the clients we work with, it's a small fraction of their job. It is like 5% of their job. They're like, "Why do I have to take this call? Like, I've got so much else to do." And so I would ask all these questions and it would be just like radio silence, and they would be so I have some great clients, but some clients it was just like pulling teeth. And had I not had any kind of public speaking training, I would have been like, "Oh my god, they hate me. Like, oh, they don't like working with me. They don't like what we're doing." And having at least some confidence, I was like, "Nope, it's not me. I can be okay with silence. I'll let it be silent for a little bit." Again, I wasn't great at it to start with, but now I'm like, I'll let it be silent for a bit and I'll let you respond. I don't need to rush to the next thing. Like, let's take it slow. So I am more comfortable in facilitating meetings, and I got a lot better at that with this job that I'm in now.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think it is all about like that exposure and getting experience in it. And I think that's like facilitation of meetings happens throughout public health and many other phases of work. So I think just being able to gain that skill set or that comfortability, because oftentimes you do have an agenda, but then things come up, and how do you navigate that, and how do you deal with maybe like opposing views, conflicts, moving on to the next point. All of these things
Yeah.
are skills that are like fundamental, I think, and are very, very important in like I think the bigger bucket of communications and public speaking. And in your work at Improvly Speaking, you do a lot of, I'd imagine, health education work. I mean, we'll get more into specifics what you do. But what role does improvisation play in health education, and how do you use it to connect with diverse audiences?
Yeah, so just to add to the timeline, I did Toastmasters in 2014, and then we moved to California in 2018, and I joined a Toastmasters club, but I always loved improv. My husband and I loved listening to improv podcasts, and I really wanted to do it, and there weren't any opportunities in South Carolina at the time. I think there are opportunities now, and North Carolina area, there's plenty of opportunities too. So improv has definitely grown and blossomed since then. But when we moved to California, it was like, all right, well, we're in LA. Like, we should take an improv class. Let's do it. I mean, there's so many options here. Now, I didn't jump on that. It took me like a year to take my first improv class. But I took my first improv class. My husband and I actually did it together as something fun to do. And I loved it. It was so fun. It was so freeing. It was so playful. And having that public speaking background on top of it, so I wasn't so nervous to go into being playful and having fun. I am not saying, as a side note, I'm not saying that you have to have, your fear of public speaking conquered to do improv. You absolutely do not. A lot of people take improv classes to help with their fear of public speaking. Just, I kind of did it in reverse. But I had so much fun, and we took improv classes together for 2 to 3 years, and some of it was online through the pandemic. A lot of it was online, actually, during the pandemic, and that gave us a community. We got to connect with people from all over. I've just loved the outlet for creativity, and to be honest, I said, conquering my fear of public speaking was life changing. And then next up, finding improv was life changing too, because even though I had conquered my fear of public speaking, I was still very much in my head. I was very scripted at that point. I would write out all my speeches and I'd be like, I have to stick to this to a T. Oh no, I missed the sentence. Oh, what was I trying to say here? I was very robotic in how I talked and spoke and presented. And improv really helped me to get out of that and flow a little bit better, be comfortable with uncertainty, and be comfortable just in maybe not prepping so much. Again, I'm not saying don't prep your speeches, please do, but also things come up. even if you are the most prepared, the internet goes off for a second, or the power goes out, or there's a big giant noise in the room that you're presenting in, whatever it is, someone's cell phone goes off. There's always something that happens. How do you react to that unexpected thing? And so having that training in improv, I mean, it's just opened so many doors. And so when you think of improv, you might think of Whose Line Is It Anyway? Omari, are you familiar with improv, or have you done improv before, heard of it?
I've probably done it like in high school, but it's been over a decade.
Oh, did you do drama and theater in high school?
A little bit.
Oh, cool. That's awesome. See, I did none of that because, again, I was so afraid. I did sports, but I was so afraid of the spotlight on me. I wouldn't have allowed myself to do any
Hmm.
kind of theater in high school. But I love that. So you have some exposure to it. So the skills that you see improvisers and performers use on stage, those skills are saying yes and. So yes and is basically it's another word for yes, or it's another phrase for accept and build. So if we're on stage performing together, doing improv together, and you say, "Hey, we're on the moon," I'm going to accept that reality. And then I'm going to build upon it and say, "Yes, and we've got this flag that we need to stick in the ground and claim our space." Whatever. And then you will and it and like add to it. On the other hand, you might see people go, "No, we're not on the moon. We're at the office. You're just dreaming." And so you can still make it work, but it flows a lot better if you say yes and on stage. That works very well too in meetings and when you're brainstorming. So, yes and is such a game changing tool. Um, Improv also makes you listen, it makes you get out of your head because you literally cannot be in your head going, "What is my face doing? What am I doing? What is the audience thinking of me?" And listen at the same time to what's going on in the scene. You can't do it. You will miss things. So you have to just leave the judgment at the door and just be fully present in the scene. And also just you get to practice world building and your imagination. As adults, we don't get to be that creative anymore. It's like work mode. And now as a working mom, I'm like, okay, gotta drop her off at daycare and then work and then pick her up and then bedtime. And it's like, oh, where has the day gone? So improv gives you a chance to play and find areas to be playful in. There's so much, right? Like you get to let go of perfection because there's always mistakes being made in improv scenes and shows, but those are sometimes the funniest parts too when people mess up. And honestly, just having that happen and being like, "Wow, okay, I made a mistake and it wasn't the end of the world. I don't have to be perfect. I can let go of perfection." I hope you're seeing like how all these skills like yes happen on stage, but like they can transform how you work, how you live your life, how you just function as a human, kind of letting go of perfection, embracing mistakes, embracing creativity. It just creates a whole new world for you. At least for me, as an anxious person, it created a whole new world for me. And that's what I hope to show people in my workshops. And I coined the phrase improvly speaking, that's my business name. And the idea is to get people comfortable. Oop, I hit my mic. Sorry. All good. Okay. Um, there are so many public speaking trainings out there. Like, there's plenty out there. But I think a lot of them focus on, using gestures and not saying ums and ahs and being very prepared. And all that is very good. But improbly speaking is getting more comfortable with the uncertainty and actually liking the question and answer period instead of just being like, "Oh, I'm good at the presentation, but I hate Q&A at the end because I don't know what they're going to ask me." Improbly speaking is like, "Yes, throw it at me. Throw a question I wasn't ready for. I'm going to answer it because I trust my skills." That's what I hope to bring to people with improbly speaking is like just how improv can how the skills of improv can apply to your professional life and personal life.
I love that. And I hope that we have opportunities to maybe collaborate and do something on that in the near future, but more to come on that.
I hope so too. And I will add too, I mentioned the term and phrase applied improv. That is a very growing field, applied improvisation. So again, just how the skills of improv that are seen on stage can be applied to your work life and home life and life in general. And there's so many different aspects of applied improv. There's medical improv, so helping doctors and nurses and medical staff use these improvisation skills to better communicate with their patients and also with each other too in staff interactions. There's improv used for public speaking to get more comfortable and kind of looser, to be a more flowy public speaker instead of so rigid. There's improv for self-care, improv for wellness, just kind of mindfulness based, being more present in the moment. I mean, all these things, all these skills, they're kind of labeled as, on LinkedIn, they're labeled as quote unquote soft skills, right? But the soft skills, and what I like to say is more like essential skills. And um, my co-presenter Jesse Greenfield and I'll talk about them later, but Jesse and I call them fundamental skills and underline the word fun. They're fundamental skills of work and life. And we kind of lose those skills along the way. And I get it. There's a lot of rules, there's a lot of processes and procedures to follow, especially in public health. We have to follow those rules, right? Like, they're very important. They're in place for a reason. I am not saying to burn it all down to the ground and go willy-nilly and just go crazy. Not saying that. But when we follow all these things to a T, sometimes we lose ourselves, we lose our creativity, we lose our collaboration because, well, things are just done this way and there's no room for change or to even think about change. And so these improv skills, these fundamental improv skills, really give you the chance to be like, well, wait, why can't we talk about change? Let's collaborate. Let's brainstorm. Let's do this better. And I just I don't know. I'm so grateful to have found it, and I want others to see the usefulness and effectiveness of these skills too.
Bring back the fundamental skills. Love it. Love it.
Bring back the fundamental skills.
Right. And I think that there's so much in there, and we downplay like the importance of like play. And I think especially as we age, what does play look like and how do we have play? Because play is so important to like our creativity, to our energy, but we don't talk about that. And but maybe that's something that I could discuss sometime further on. But shifting a little bit here, wanted to ask, what does public health mean to you?
So let me backtrack. In employee wellness, we like to say that we make the healthy choice the easy choice. So that is kind of my view of public health. You can zoom out from that a bit, though, because public health is all around us. It shapes our world and our lives. Drinking water, healthy drinking water, walkable neighborhoods. Now, again, that involves different industries and sectors, but public health plays a part in that. Vaccines, huge, right? Like, public health has shaped our lives for the better. And from the employee wellness perspective that I have really focused on in my public health journey, it helps to make the healthy choice the easy choice. Are there healthy foods to choose from? Is our environment, one, functioning and workable, lighting and room to walk around and space to work, and it's a quiet environment, and the heat and the temperature. But also, is there room to walk around and be active at lunchtime? Is there a fitness center, or is there space to walk and get some movement? Is it ADA accessible, right? So public health is so inviting and accessible and really cares about everyone. And that is why I really appreciate public health. As I mentioned, I had studied exercise science in undergrad, and then in my and then when I was in my senior year, I was looking for jobs, and I got a job as a personal trainer. We'll talk more about that, but I then switched over to study my master's of public health. And that switch just from exercise science to public health was huge. Exercise science is very like, these are the optimal states that you should be in. This is the optimal body fat percentage you should have, optimal blood pressure percentage. You know, these are the optimal VO2 max, like all this stuff. And then public health was so like welcoming and inviting. It was like, just move for 5 to 10 minutes. Like that is better than nothing. Something is better than nothing. And so I love that inviting and welcoming approach for public health.
Love that. Love that. So tell us more about that. So you got your bachelor's of exercise science at the University of South Carolina. You said that you had a job as a fitness trainer. So maybe walk us through a little bit of that thought process of wanting to become a fitness trainer, and maybe what was it that maybe said told you that this wasn't the direction that you wanted to go.
Yeah, I played volleyball, or I played sports all growing up. Movement is very important to me, and I was very big into sports and athletics. And then when I went to college, it was kind of like, well, I really like that, so that's what I want to do. I want to be a sports trainer and like train sports teams and all this stuff. At, and when I graduated, I took a job as a personal trainer. I got certified to be a personal trainer, and then I worked at just a local gym as a trainer. And I quickly learned, okay, this is a lot harder than it looks on TV. So The Biggest Loser was on TV at the time, I think when I was in high school. I don't know if you remember that, but it had Jillian Michaels, and people essentially went to these destinations to lose weight. And it was a very intense weight loss journey. And I didn't like how they did it, but I liked, the idea of having a trainer to help you get healthy and more fit and stuff. But working that job as a trainer, one, it took a lot of communication and sales. And I always coined the phrase of like, I'm not good at sales, quote unquote. I'm not good at sales. I just don't like it. And you actually have to be really good at sales to be a fitness trainer at a gym, even build your own business as a trainer. Like, you have to be good at sales. I was not. And so I quickly was like, okay, I can't do this full time. And that's when I decided to do my master's of public health, to buy me some more time. So that way I didn't have to go into the working world quite yet. Like, I could get my master's degree. That would give me ideally a leg up, or at least get my applications looked at. It was 2010 when I graduated. So there was a recession going on around 2008. Like, I was just applying to all these jobs and not hearing back at all. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to go get my master's degree. And the reason I decided on getting my master's of public health was because I interned at Verizon Wireless's employee health and wellness center that they had in South Carolina. And I interned there, one, because I liked employee wellness. I was interested in it, but also it was a paid internship. I did that my senior year of undergrad, and I really enjoyed it. And my manager at that workplace had her MPH. And I was like, okay, I want her job. I eventually want to do what she does. So in order to get there, I need to have my MPH. That is literally what shaped my decision. I was like, all right, I'm going to get my MPH. And that's when I had to choose between staying at University of South Carolina, or do I want to go back home to go to LSU's MPH program, which is located in New Orleans. again, it would have been easier to go to LSU's program. I could have stayed at home. I could have, probably saved money that way. But there was something calling to me to stay in South Carolina. I was already comfortable with the campus, so I chose to stay. I also had my boyfriend, who is now my husband. At the time, we met freshman year, so it was like my people are here, and I decided to stay. And I think that worked out in in my favor too. But I'll just add, my parents didn't like that decision that I wanted to stay, so they said, "All right, we're cutting you off financially." And I recognize how lucky I had it that they helped me in my undergrad. I had student loans, I had stuff, but they did help me in undergrad. But it was kind of shocking at that point to be like, they're like, "You need to pay for your cell phone, you need to pay for your health insurance." Like, they basically cut me off completely. And so in undergrad, I think we're gonna go through like my list of jobs. I had to work 3 to 4 different odd jobs just to make ends meet, to pay rent, to pay for food and stuff. And looking back on it now, I am so glad that I got my MPH, because it did get me more noticed when I started applying for jobs after that. So that way I didn't have to work 3 to 4 different jobs after that. I s I did still choose to work as a volleyball coach once I got my full-time job, because I liked volleyball. But getting my MPH really helped kind of get more noticed and have the professional skills that I don't think you quite get in undergrad too.
Well, thank you for sharing that and being vulnerable around your story as well. And uh, Yeah, so you got your master's of public health with a focus on exercise science, physical activity, and public health at the University of South Carolina. Some of the roles that you had, as you shared, through the many roles, are you're a student intern and part-time trainer at the Verizon Wireless Employee Wellness Center, personal trainer at Pivotal Fitness, practicum student at Girls on the Run of Columbia, graduate assistant for campus wellness faculty and staff office at the University of South Carolina Student Health Services, as well as a dog sitter and house sitter. So tell us maybe a little bit about those experiences and what did you learn from
Yeah, you have to take a breath after that list, right? Like, that's a lot, especially campus wellness faculty and staff office at University of South Carolina Student Health Services.
It's a
Yeah, that
mouthful.
takes
It's
up
a
a lot of
mouthful.
room.
Yeah.
Takes up a lot of room on the resume too, right? That was my favorite job that I had in grad school. I worked 20 hours. It got me in-state tuition. It was it was a graduate assistantship, right? And getting that really secured that I could stay in South Carolina to do my master's program there. I loved working there. I had a fantastic manager, Tina Devlin. She is on the board now at Ches, and she has her MChes. She's fantastic. And just I got to plan programs. I think sometimes you hear graduate assistantship, and some people like grade papers, or they have to lead like labs or something, which is good exposure. But in that role that I had, I got to plan, implement, and evaluate programs for faculty and staff at the university. I was getting like real experience instead of just taking, in our public health program, we took a lot of program planning classes, evaluation classes, and I was getting that experience right then and there with my assistantship, and I loved it. I mean, I wanted to have that job too. And it was a very small office, and so timing didn't work out, that any job openings were available. But that's what I really wanted to do. I was like, I want to do employee wellness on the university side of things, but it's just such a small field. So that was 20 hours a week. And then I probably did about like 5 to 10 hours as a trainer. I would show up to train my clients. I really didn't have room to add anyone. Like, I'd go to school, and then I'd come train from like about 6 to 8 p.m. And then I would intern, or, I worked at Verizon Wireless 1 day a week or so. Like, it was just, my schedule was packed to the brim. And then, yeah, some people would ask me to dog sit or house sit. I am very trustworthy. And I think that is a very big compliment when people ask you to, take care of their dogs who are like their children to them, and stay in their houses and stuff. So it's a big compliment, and also was another working paying gig. So I had to take everything that came to me. Um and it was hard. I'm not gonna lie. It was a really busy 2.5 years. It took me an extra semester. I started in spring 2011. I wanted to start in the spring, specifically because I knew if I waited to the fall, I might not do it. When I was in my senior year of undergrad, I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna find jobs. Like, no worries. I'm gonna find a job. I'm a good student. Like, I've got a 4.0 GPA. I could put that on my resume. I, I won't have a problem." But I did have a problem. Like, no one was hiring. I had student loans to pay off. And I didn't even take what is it, the GRE? I didn't take the GRE until the spring. So I had basically missed the window to apply for the fall semester, which actually, looking back on it, it gave me a semester, to work, to do my personal training, and really see and discover, like, I don't like this world. Like, I want something bigger for myself. And and so I started in the spring. I applied for the spring because I'm like, if I don't do it now, if I have to wait a whole nother year till August, it might not happen. So I started in the spring, and then I did another 2 years. So it took me 2.5 years to finish my MPH program, which in the grand scheme of things is nothing, right? Just maybe a little extra money to pay for that extra semester.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing that. And you were definitely busy, and I can tell that there were many like challenges that you had to overcome throughout that period of time as well. Would you like to share some takeaways before getting into your wellness coordinator and health promotions coordinator role after you graduated?
I look back on my grad school career, and I was so busy. I didn't really network that much. I think there are pros and cons to going to grad school, like, right out of undergrad and, like, just getting it
Mhm.
done, right? Because if I were to try to go to school now as a parent, I'm in my mid-30s, like, I I couldn't do it. I don't have the brain power, like, to study and sit down and write papers. Like, I'm just not in that world anymore. So the pros there, you get it done, right? But I was so unsure of myself. I lacked confidence. I didn't have the public speaking and communication skills that I have now. So I do think one plus of if I went back to school now and did my program is I would be able to network a lot better. I would be able to, like, get to know my teachers and stuff instead of just showing up to class, take the test, and, like, want to get the degree. For me, that was the big thing, is like, I just need this degree to, like, show up on applications. It gave me a lot more than that, but, like, that was the goal going into it. And if I had the chance to go back and do it again with the communication skills I have now, I would do it a lot better with networking, sitting down with my teachers and talking with them, seeing what opportunities are out there, being more interested instead of spreading myself too thin, trying to work 4 to 5 different jobs. Again, you do what you have to do in the moment, but, I could definitely go back and improve that piece. So, anyone that's in that world now, you're going through your program, network, 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 get to know your cohorts, get to know your teachers. You just never know when you're gonna need help, or, like, when you can ask for help when an opportunity comes up.
Absolutely. I appreciate you sharing that advice. So you graduated, you had a short stint as a wellness coordinator before becoming a health promotions coordinator at Blue Cross Blue Shield of South Carolina. Tell us about what you did in those roles.
The job that I got at Blue Cross Blue Shield of South Carolina, again, another mouthful of name, that's the job that I went to school for. That's the job that I wanted. It was, I did employee wellness for the 10,000 employees that worked at BCBSSC, to just shorten it there. So we did physical activity programs. They had a program called Get in the Habit, which encouraged people to be active. And if they met the milestones, then they got paid time off. So you got rewarded with time off for being active, which is great. They also had a program where you could wear tennis shoes to work. And if you had a little badge, if you were part of Get in the Habit, you could wear your tennis shoes, which then encouraged and made it easier for people to walk outside. We also did, we worked with the cafeteria staff. They had an on site cafeteria at their main campuses. So we worked with them to have a healthy food option. We did presentations to different departments, to highlight what we did. So I had to do a lot of presentations. This is where the presentations came in. This is where that fear really got shown the light, right? And it, I really enjoyed that job. I am not in that job now, so I can say this now. I enjoyed that job for about 2 years, and then after that, I was kind of bored with it. I was like, okay, I got the job that I went to school for. Now what? Like, I'm doing all the stuff. Like, now what? And I always saw myself going into like a manager role, which I do think I would be good at and set up for. I just timing wise never worked for me to like a position never opened up. But now that I've like moved away and started my own business and stuff, like I'm really happy that I have that experience of like having my side business and being an entrepreneur because I would work there and just feel like I feel like I can do more. Like I would say that a lot in my job. I'm like, I feel like I can do more, but I don't know what that more is. And so now flash forward to present times, I have figured out what that more is. It's being a communicator, it's being an entrepreneur. Yes, it's a side business right now. Doesn't mean it will always be. It can be a full-time business eventually. And I feel like I am doing that more piece now.
And how did you get to knowing that that was the more that you wanted to commit to?
That's a great question. Reflection now, like that it's happened, I'm like, that's the more piece. I worked with a lot of coaches. I am a big like coaching person. Like I want to talk to somebody about everything. Um, that's probably obvious that I like to talk at this point. But I have, I have a health coach. I had a business coach. Now I have a life coach, which I will admit, like all of the coaching, I worked with a business coach at that time, and it was right around like the start of 2020, right before the pandemic hit. And I remember talking with her. She was another Toastmaster. And I remember talking to her and I said, I just feel like I can do more. And I don't know what that more is. So I was still trying to figure it out, right? Um, I took that job at BlueCross in 2014. I left in 2018 to move to California. I have my current job at Keenan at 2018. So in 2020, like 6 years later, still feeling like I feel like there's more I can do. And I remember telling her, my business coach, I was like, I like public speaking and I have just started taking improv classes and I like this improv thing. And she's like, well, there you go. Combine those two loves. And that's essentially what happened. And, discovering this world of applied improv and how there are a lot of applied improv facilitators and even expanding on that, just the world of facilitation too, and leading meetings and presenting. There's a whole art to that. And I think I've found my calling. And for a while, I thought I had to leave public health and employee wellness to find that more. But actually, now I'm discovering wait, these fundamental skills can actually serve public health workers and health education workers, employee wellness workers. They can serve everyone. I have the experience in public health. I know what kind of skills are needed. And so I don't need to leave public health. Like, I could stay in this world and just find a different niche to serve it.
Absolutely. And maybe tell us about the growth of Improvly Speaking. Like, what did it start at? What is it now?
I like this question because it forces me to give myself grace too. I started the company in 2022. I made it official, right? Like, I have an LLC. This is my business name. Blah blah blah. In California, you have to pay taxes for having your business, even if you don't make money. Like, all right, I'm committed to paying these business taxes. I got an accountant. Like, I did all the business stuff, and so it's been a side business, and it is growing as a side business does. It's slow growth. I have my podcast now. I do workshops on the side when I can. I present at conferences. The cool thing is that my work is in employee wellness. And so if I present at an employee wellness conference, I will stay because I'm interested in the topic and the breakout sessions and stuff. So it kind of meets, kills two birds with one stone, so to speak. But all to say, I'm kind of beating around the bush here. It's been slow. And then having my baby, I have had zero growth, and I have not released a podcast episode in like 6 or 7 months. And a part of my brain fires and goes, "Oh no," like it panics, like, "Oh no, we haven't done enough. We're not doing enough. We're not staying relevant. We're not staying current. People are going to look at your Instagram post and be like, it's from 6 months ago. Like, she's not doing anything." And I just have to take that breath, right? That 1 minute cleansing breath, like we did in the beginning, and just be like, chill out. It's okay. Growth can still happen. It can happen slowly. It's okay. I am in this new identity of a mom. I will figure it out. I'm so glad that I have the business set up now, because honestly, setting up a business after becoming a parent would be really hard. People do it and they do well with it, but I'm glad the business is already set up and I will continue to grow it. It's just kind of had to take a little hiatus right now. Um, I led a few workshops for my Toastmasters groups and stuff while I was on leave, just like pro bono stuff, just to kind of stay in the flow of presenting. And I got to tell you, it was so hard as a new mom, foggy brain, sleep deprived. But after I led it, like, it took a lot of work to even get to those presentations. Like, I've got to pump and I've got to have childcare and I've got to have a bottle ready for her. Like, there's a lot more that goes into it now. But every time I led those presentations, they were so much fun. People had a good time. People learned something. It was engaging. And it always lit me up. And so that's my sign. If this still lights me up, this conversation is lighting me up right now. Like, if it still lights me up, this is awesome. And it's a sign to keep going. So I will keep going and growing my business at its own pace.
Love that. And I think that that's important. I think we live in a world where there's so many signs of like hyper capitalism, and it like,
Yes.
and we don't think about like what are the downstream effects of that, like burnout or like all these feelings of not feeling enough. But like, to your point, is like when we just breathe and like be present, we are able to see like the value in the present and where we are right now, which I think is important. And yeah, there's no race. The only race you're running is against yourself at the end of the day. So let's say
I love
someone,
that.
yeah, of course. Let's say someone wanted to go and listen to the Improvly Speaking podcast and binge it until you release some new episodes. What would they get from that podcast?
I focus on 5 main things. I focus on public speaking, improv, communication, performance, and creativity. So that gives a wide range of topics and guests. And the main goal is to show how improv shows up in our daily lives. I've had my friend on who is a culinary instructor in New Orleans and teaches other chefs to become chefs and be ready to go into the workplace in the culinary environment that is New Orleans. And she does a lot of improvising in a different way, right? Like, how to improvise in the kitchen, but yet still follow the menu, like be kind of fast paced. And then I've interviewed a friend who's a Zumba instructor. And, she does some improvising, even though she has choreography, she does some improvising there. I've interviewed speakers and improvisers. Honestly, I could have on anyone as a guest because we are all improvisers. Like, that is the goal of the show, is to show you, like, we are all improvisers. None of us have a script for our lives. And if we did have that script, would we look at it? Would we enjoy it? Would you look at your script if you had it?
It depends.
I know
It really depends.
it's a hard question, right? But we don't have that script. Luckily, we don't have to answer that question. But if we hold on, let me we don't so we don't have to answer that question. I'm sorry, I'm like totally
No,
like had a brain fart.
you
What was
take
I
your
just
time.
saying?
No
Yeah.
worry.
We okay, yeah, we don't have the script. Okay, yes.
Like I think you asked if you had a script, would you use it?
Yes, yeah. Thank you. Sorry, I just totally like mom
No,
brain.
no, it's fine.
Brain went out the window.
Yeah, just feel yeah, just repeat it and
Which
good to go.
And luckily, we don't have to answer that question because we don't have that script. But I think most of us would find, if we did see our lives played out, like, how boring would that be? Like, kind of the fun is in the uncertainty, too. And so, you know, um, the podcast really aims to inspire you to try new things and get outside your comfort zone and try the things that you may have wanted to try, whether it's improv or it's like a music class or even like a handwriting or calligraphy class, or whatever, like what you've been wanting to do, to actually do it. Like, just try it and see what comes up. Have a creative outlet and see what comes up. So I think I kind of cast a wide net with the podcast, and that's okay. I enjoy it, and I love being in the the interviewer seat, and getting to ask people questions and learn their stories. I will say my episodes lean on the long side. I think yours do too, but mine are even longer. They're like an hour and a half to 2 hours because I don't want to cut people off. I had a previous podcast that was focused more on public speaking, and we interviewed speakers, and my co-host on that podcast was very focused on, like, the podcast episodes need to be an hour. If they go over an hour, people aren't going to listen. And I know that that affects some, I get it. But, like, it felt like a hard stop. Like, he would end the interview and it's like, but wait, we're just getting going. Like, we're kind of warmed up now, and it feels like we're just hitting the juicy stuff. And so I think it's important for me as a host to highlight people's journeys, as do you. You highlight people's journeys and then get to like the inspiring stuff and leave people with the inspiration. And I don't know, that's the goal of the podcast, is to inspire and motivate, and hopefully find something that interests you as a creative outlet from that.
Yeah, I love that, and I definitely think there is a lot of value in just being able to have that space to continue to share and open up. Because, yeah, so many of the topics that we talk about today, we could probably talk so much more about it, and the challenge is really like trying to get through all the things that I would like to share with the audience, But it's always a give and a take.
And you know what? I've had to give myself grace around that too. Of like, okay, my podcast is a long form content podcast. Like, it's not going to be 30 minutes. Like, some of my solo episodes, I always go into like, okay, I'm going to record for like 20 minutes and that's it. And I end up talking for like 45 minutes. It's just, I've got a lot to say. There's a lot to talk about. And for a while, I really stressed myself out about that. And it's like, just accept, like, this is a long podcast, like, this is longer content, and I will find my audience that likes this longer content. I don't need to be worried about this invisible audience that I don't even know that doesn't care for longer content. Like, I'm creating this for a certain group, and I'm okay with that. So that grace and vulnerability comes into play as well.
Yep, absolutely. The right length for the podcast is however long you want it to be. So you keep
Exactly.
you keep on doing you. Um, awesome. So before we talk a little bit about your other role, would love to hear where people can where people can connect with Improvly Speaking.
Yeah, so I've got my website, improvlyspeaking.com, and that's improvlyspeaking.com. Usually in the transcripts, AI or whatever transcript service you have always codes it as improbably speaking, which I mean isn't off. Like, we're improvly and improbably speaking here and like doing big things with public speaking. But the website is improvlyspeaking.com. I'm on Instagram at improvlyspeaking, LinkedIn at Dayna Gowan, and then the Improvly Speaking podcast you can find on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and I think wherever else you find your podcast, it's probably on there too.
Awesome. And I'll be sure to link all of those, some of them below, others of them on the show notes page. So go ahead and check that out. So you
Thank
also,
you.
you're most welcome. You're most welcome. I'm really glad that we're able to chat today. So you also work as a health and wellness manager at Keenan. Can you briefly talk a little bit about what you do there?
Yeah, so I've been there now for uh, over 5 years too, which is crazy. But yeah, so Keenan is an insurance broker, and their big niche was working with schools, school districts, healthcare, and public agencies. So they, do a lot of benefits planning and benefits coordination for these clients. And they have a very small team of 5 of us who are on the health and wellness team. And our goal is to help those clients create employee wellness programs to help with their benefits and such. So we work with benefits managers, HR managers at these industries, and we'll usually do like monthly meetings with them to coordinate their program. It really spans. Like, I kind of work as a consultant and as a wellness coordinator for different clients. And we might help implement a program, we'll help plan, we help kind of connect their resources that they have with their insurance companies. So I'm in California, let's say a client has Kaiser and BlueShield. Well, we'll bring in representatives from their account managers from those insurance companies, and they'll say, okay, we have these programs and these apps available, and you could promote that to your employees. The problem becomes, a lot of insurance companies, yours included, offers a lot of great wellness programs for their members, right? Like, they have the Calm app or different apps that you can have access to for free just because you're an Anthem member, BlueCross member, whatever. But the problem is that's only for those members. When a client has 2 or 3 different insurance plans that they offer, well, then someone who has Kaiser doesn't get the resources that Anthem members get. And so it's very discombobulated, it's disconnected. And so we kind of bridge the gap between those insurance companies and the clients to say, okay, well, here's a program that's like a third party vendor that can bring you wellness programs. Like, wellness portals are a big thing right now, where it's like a checklist. You get points for doing certain activities, and then if you do all those activities, you get a premium reduction off of your health care. So we'll kind of coordinate those, find the right third-party vendor for them. We'll find the right program for them, and then usually, work with that vendor to get reporting. And if something's not working with the program, like, we're calling the vendor and be like, "Hey, what's up?" So we're like the go-between, between the client and their vendor. Um, it's an interesting role, right? Because you're the go-between. And so I personally love the role that I had at, the University of South Carolina, like serving the employees directly. At Blue Cross, I served the employees directly. You get to know people's names, you get to know employees and like where they work, and you kind of get to know the environment a lot more. When you come in as a consultant, like I know what works generally, and we have 30 plus clients, and I had 15 of those 30 plus clients, um, that I met with, each month and did their programs for. And so I could speak to like, okay, well, this is what works mostly for counties and schools. But I don't know, what works, in a district that has 30 different schools. Each school is different. So it's it's a very interesting role. It's very niche too. When I tell people like I work, I help companies with their employee wellness programs, they're like, how did you get that role? And I'm like, well, I went to school for it. And they're like, that's a thing you can go to school for? I'm like, yeah, employee wellness is a thing. Like, does your company offer a walking challenge? And they're like, yeah, we have like a pedometer. We don't do pedometers now, but a Fitbit or a walking challenge. I'm like, yeah, there's somebody behind that who coordinates it. That's me, or that's who I work with to coordinate it. And it is very niche too. Um, but I do enjoy it. But the consulting side is a lot, and I don't think you quite get all of the like, you don't feel as rewarded because you don't get to know the employees behind the scenes kind of thing.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And thank you for sharing that as well. So I do have a bonus question to ask you before the Furious Five. But before we get to that, I know that you wanted to quickly plug a conference I believe you'll be presenting at.
Yes, thank you. So I will be presenting at the Art and Science of Health Promotion Conference, which is this year, 2025, on March 31st to April 4th. And this year it's in Scottsdale, Arizona. I am co-presenting with my friend and fellow improviser, Jesse Greenfield, and they are amazing. I hope you'll have Jesse on your podcast as well, because they also have quite an extensive experience in public health and also improv. And together we're leading an intensive training seminar. So it's 2 days, 8 hours each day on facilitating. And it's called Essential Skills for Effective Facilitation in Health Promotion. But secretly, what we're going to be doing is doing some improv exercises and applied improv exercises, and then see how these exercises in this very low stakes training and seminar can then apply to our work in public health and health promotion, health education, and how we can do a better job facilitating when we are leading meetings. So I mentioned, in my role as a consultant, I have to lead meetings. Every month I'm meeting with each client. I have an agenda, but if I rush through that agenda and just to rush through it and like get through it and okay, and then check it off and go to the next one, I'm not building a rapport with those clients, right? And I'm not asking them what they want. Like I'm just like, oh, you should do this, 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 and this. I'm not listening. So a key piece of facilitating is, yes, leading the meeting and holding space for it, but also letting people give input and experience what they want and share what they want. Sometimes it's a quiet group, but sometimes if you build rapport with your clients, you can actually build connection and also get the outcome that you want, right? To like grow the program or okay, make some decisions. You can reach your goals, but also build connection too instead of rushing through. And I think a lot of times I'm on so many meetings where it's like, all right, we went through this item, we went through this item, we went through this meeting, all right, meeting's done, adjourned, go back to work. It's like, what a missed opportunity for building connection. And so that's what our intensive training is like, building connection, which is the theme of the conference, building connection and cultivating belonging and allowing a space where people feel comfortable to share, which requires you as the facilitator to feel comfortable in the uncertainty. because yes, you have agenda items and talking points, but then you have to open it up for either the debrief or the input sharing to be like, all right, what would you like to share? And you don't know what they're going to say. So you have to be comfortable in that space of uncertainty. And so we'll be doing a lot of that training there for 2 days. We did a similar one last year and we had so much fun. It was such a great experience. So we're doing something similar again. And then we also have a breakout session called the 4 C's for engaging and effective teamwork, collaboration, communication, connection, and creativity. There are more C's, but to keep it short, we limited it to 4. It's an awesome conference. This will be our 3rd year presenting and my 4th year going. I really like it. It does have a lot of employee wellness stuff, but it's not just employee wellness focused. There's a lot of health education, a lot of health equity too. That was the theme last year. Omari, I was thinking about you. Like, you should apply to speak there, talk about your brand and business. Like, that would certainly be a cool point, to get on board with this conference. It's a really well done conference. So if you end up going, let me know that you heard it on this podcast, and I hope to see you there because it's going to be a lot of fun.
I hope that someone is able to make it out there, and I will link information for that in the show notes as well.
Thank you. Yeah, and I hope you are able to attend at some point too. Have you heard of it, that conference?
I have not, but it does sound like it'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's very well done, and they always have really good themes. A lot on like psychological safety and belonging and connection and health equity. It's really good breakout sessions too.
Okay, awesome. I'll definitely note that for some time in the future. So I believe this is the second week that this bonus question, which is a question that a past guest is going to ask to the current guest. So the question that was left today is, when is a time that you had to pivot in your career? How did you know you needed that pivot?
I love that the last guest left this question. When I had just finished grad school, I applied for a job with the University of South Carolina. It was for their campus wellness program, but on the student side. So I had worked on the faculty and staff side, but I knew everyone in that department, and I thought for sure, like, I have a really good chance of getting this job, right? I know everyone, they know me. Yes, it's like student wellness, but I can handle that. And I didn't get the job. And I had kind of like really put all my eggs into that basket of getting the job. And so when I didn't get that job, I cried a lot. I went for a run, a 4-mile run in the rain, because I was just so devastated and like, what am I going to do? Like, what am I don't have any other leads. I was so worried. And I ended up finding a job, which we didn't really talk about. I found a job for that I worked at for 6 months. It was actually with an insurance broker, very similar job to what I'm doing now, just about 10 years earlier. And I wasn't good at it. I will totally admit it wasn't the right job for me. If I had the skills that I have now, I could go back and do that job, but I wasn't the right job for me right out of grad school and lacking confidence and such. And I just knew it wasn't the right place. And it wasn't, I guess, a pivot, but I was looking and I ended up finding my job at BlueCross, which is the job that I wanted. And I think, and then I've alluded to, like, I got that job and now I want more. And so I think, we're always looking for ways to maybe grow and pivot. And it maybe, that's not so much of a pivot, but I've had to learn to, like, let's not put all our eggs in this basket. And like, just because I've reached this one milestone, like, doesn't mean I'm set. Like, let's grow and keep learning. I'm a lifelong learner, and I've realized that now with improv. And I think, in public health, certainly you kind of get put maybe into these like your departments and you're like, all right, that's it. But you can grow and learn and do that more, that quote unquote more that you want to do. I want to encourage everyone to say yes and to yourselves. I'll bring that improv piece back. Yes and has been big for me in my mindset. It's a growth mindset. So before, in when I was right out of school, I'd be like, I want to start my own business. I would say, well, no, I don't have I need to go to school for it. I don't know how to own a business. I don't know what to do. And I would talk myself out of it. But Yes and says, yes, I can start that business. And I'll start a podcast with it. And I'll get to connect to people who share, cool stories and I can work with them later. Yes. And I'll get to talk with cool public health researchers. And like you might actually find the outcome or the idea 4 ands away. But if you say no to yourself, then and there, then nothing happens and growth doesn't happen. So yes and is a growth mindset. And if you are thinking of pivoting or changing or growing, say yes and to yourself and just see and discover what comes up from there.
Echo that as well. So now shifting you on to the Furious Five, the 5 questions that I ask all guests. Number 1, what advice would you give to a student trying to pursue a career in public health?
I think I said this earlier, but network, network, network. Don't just get so caught up in getting the degree and being done and getting the job. Enjoy your time there, enjoy all the opportunities to meet people and network, because that network is going to help you later on.
Number 2, if you were talking to someone wanting to get into your position, what advice would you give them?
Have good boundaries. As a consultant in the employee wellness field, it's hard. You get spread thin too, and that was also a common theme in this episode. I talked about having 4 to 5 different jobs and never saying no, basically. And I just talked about yes and. You can still say no. No is a complete sentence, even if you're saying yes and. Like, if you don't want to do something, you can say no to it. So having clear boundaries, and one thing that I've had to really work on, and I will have to work on too as a working parent, is not over promising and under delivering. I tend to be like, oh, I can get that to you in 2 days. And it's like, what, how am I going to get that to you in 2 days? Let's under promise and over deliver. And I really need to have those good boundaries too, starting back at work next week.
Number 3, what's something you're working on improving in your life right now?
Being more present in the moment. As a mom, I'm constantly like, oh my gosh, she's growing up. And like, I just got rid of her swing that she would sit in, and I would wash dishes or cook or something, and I'd put her in the swing, and she could still fit in the swing, but she's too big and she wants to be more active. And I'm just like, my little baby's growing up. And, I tend to do the like, what happened? Like, where's time going? But I am present in the moment to an extent. I could get off my phone some more and stuff, and just being present with her, being present in this moment. This is the only moment we have, and enjoying it and letting my brain chill out and not stress about all the things to do.
Number 4, professionally, do you recommend anything?
Well, of course, I mentioned Improbly Speaking podcast, but honestly, try an improv class or some kind of performance-based class, or even just a creative outlet. I think even if you are a busy professional, like outside of work, you have a ton to do, whether it's parenting, caregiving, whatever. Find a creative outlet, because I think that adds to you and it makes you more well-rounded and it gives you more creativity and insight. So find a hobby or creative outlet that really lights you up too. And it doesn't have to be a hobby that leads to creating a business. It can just be a hobby for hobby's sake too.
Then, last but not least, if there was one piece of advice you'd give to your younger self, what would it be?
The world is less judgmental than you think it is. Now, I have an asterisk there because the world, there's a lot of isms, right? There's racism, misogyny, like there is a lot of judgment going on. Um, However, when I was really nervous about public speaking, I was nervous because I thought that people were judging me, that they were judging what I looked like and what I sounded like and what's my face doing, what are my eyes doing. And what I've learned now in this public speaking training and growing as a speaker is that the audience wants you to win. They want to support you. They want you to have a good speech because they can get stuff out of it when you speak well too. The audience is on your side until they're not. And I used to think too, if I had a bad speech that someone or it didn't go well, someone would go home and tell their family like, "Oh, I had to sit through this boring presentation. The speaker was terrible and blah blah blah." And it's like no one's doing that. When I go home to my family, I'm enjoying the time with my family. I am not talking about this speaker who, might have been a little nervous. Like I have forgotten about it as soon as I left the room. And so the world is not as judging on a personal level. Like when we're up speaking, people want you to succeed. They want you to do well. Let's have that abundance, know that it exists, and then give that abundance to others too.
That's a great frame shift, and I greatly, greatly appreciate you sharing that, as well as I appreciate you coming on today, Dayna, and sharing all your insights in your journey.
Omari, this has been lovely. Am I the longest episode you've had?
You are not the longest episode
Oh,
I have
all
had.
right.
Maybe
We're
we can
probably
have you
getting
back. We can get you back for the next time.
well, and I'd love to have you on the show too, do a pod swap when I start recording again. And yeah, this has been lovely. I love what you're doing, the public health millennial, embracing the millennials and other generations as well in our public health journey. You're doing so much for the good of public health, and I respect that and honored to be on the show. Thank you.
Truly is my pleasure. Look forward to the invites and good luck in going back to work. And as I said earlier, sending all the positive vibes.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
You're welcome. So, housekeeping items, everyone. Thank you all so much for watching or listening to this. Be sure to subscribe if you have not as yet. Leave a like, leave a 5-star review, and share it with a friend who gets some value from it. I will see you all next week. Peace, everyone.